If money is an issue for you, what guns do I recommend if you own several or just a few guns, if you want to take the impractical and replace it with the tactical? The first category of guns in your collection I would recommend thinning out or getting rid of altogether are the gimmicky fun gun category. If you bought it just because it looked cool, if you bought it just because you saw it in a movie, if you bought it because it was your favorite gun in a certain video game, but it does not really have a very practical purpose in terms of self-defense or prepping, I would get rid of it. The next category is kind of going to be two parts. It's either going to be guns that are finely made, but there's better technology out there, or guns that are actual collectible antiques. Either ones, they usually have that this gun is really outdated if I absolutely had to defend my life with it. So I'm talking about your muzzle loading supplies. That's not going to really save your life like the new stuff that's out there. I'm also talking about the cool modern production Western looking gun. Probably not going to be as good as what else is out there. If you're in a more restrictive state, that might be fine. But then I'm going to be the big meanie and talk about that gun that's gold plated that your grandpa passed down to you, and it's worth about $7,000. I would recommend parting with it if that is one of the only guns you have and buying some nice equipment with the money that you're going to make, because if that gun is not practical, it is not going to contribute or enhance your survival. Yes, it is better than having no gun at all, but if money's an issue for you, I'd much rather you part with it and buy some more modern stuff and just take a lot of really good selfies with it so that you'll always have that memory of that gun. The next category is having too many different types of guns. So if you got 8 different types of modern sporting rifles, 8 different types of handguns, 8 different types of mags for each gun, and then 8 different types of ammo for each gun, that is a lot of odds and ends and sometimes obscure things, which I'm going to get to next, that you are going to have to stock up on. It's going to be a lot cheaper if you just bulk purchase one type of mag, one type of ammo, one type of parts kit to refurbish the gun if you had to, and then one type of training regimen for your whole family. And I know this is the most boring thing you've ever heard. I love the fact of owning variety, how much fun it is that you have a gun from a different era or one gun that feels very different than the next. But if money is a big issue, I would recommend, honestly, 5.56 and 9mm being the majority of your bug out and defensive guns that you would stock up on. Now, I already gave it away, but the fourth category here is obscure guns. Some of these guns are phenomenally well made, and some of them are pretty old. We're talking the older HK stuff. Now, the older HK stuff, it usually seems to be fine, but there's a lot of other guns that are very, very obscure. And they're new production, they're awesome, but trying to find some sort of part for it if it breaks is going to be a little bit of a challenge, rather than finding a part for a mil-spec AR-15 or a Glock. So that's a consideration. The other consideration is some of these more obscure guns are fine, but then they take a very specific type of magazine just for that gun, and finding that magazine means basically having to wait for it to show up on Gunbroker and paying about $150 for it. Also, obscure guns can include very obscure calibers or calibers that aren't very common. And some of them are brand new built guns, typically AR-15s that have a very unique round to them that is fine and it's amazing round, but when you look at bulking up on it, it's going to be a ton of money. And there's practical options that are very common, like the 5.56, that seem to work just fine for our military. So what I would recommend is, if you have an obscure gun, you can do one of two things. You can either convert it. In the case of a lot of ARs, you just put in a 5.56 upper on it. So you can either convert it to that more common caliber. If it's a 357 SIG, you could convert it to a 9mm and make sure it runs fine. Or I would recommend, if money's an issue, just get rid of it altogether, trade it in, and get something more common. Now, the fifth category is going to be a gun that is not usable by the whole family. This doesn't take much explaining. If it kicks really, really hard and grandma can't use it and your daughter can't use it and one of your sons hates shooting it and then your wife will never touch it, I would recommend just getting rid of it, because that is a gun that only you are comfortable with, and replacing it with something to where in a pinch you could grab this gun and everybody in your family would be at least somewhat comfortable using it. Now here's the honorable mentions. There's going to be two of them. The first honorable mention is a gun that is not DIY friendly. Basically, I'm going to give you a picture. Gun A, you know how to fix from the ground up. You can find parts for it very easily, modifications for it very easily. It does not require any fancy tools to work on. Gun B does. I would just keep gun A. And then the last thing in the honorable mention is just so obvious that I put it in the honorable mention. If you got cheapo guns, I would get rid of them. It is better to have, say, 4 guns that are phenomenal brands, that work great, that you see on the hip holsters of police officers the world over, with great track records, than owning 20 guns that have just horrible track records. That's just my opinion. Thank you very much for listening. Please let me know in the comment section, what gun do you most regret ever purchasing? Let me know all about it and how butthurt you are about it still. Thank you very much for listening. I guess I'm supposed to tell you to like and subscribe and share. If you want to do it, that would be awesome. I guess it helps me somehow. Thank you very much. Have a good one.